Welcome to the Safe Money Retirement Show with certified financial fiduciary Tim Wood.
Let's sit down and make an actual plan, and we have definitely got to factor in that retirement danger zone. I wish to God someone had sat down and done that with my dad. We wish we would have known about these things.
Tim is a retirement and income planning expert, best-selling author, and the founder of SafeMoneyRetirement.com. Tim focuses on wealth management, retirement income, tax and long-term care planning, and so much more.
Today is your opportunity to build the tomorrow you want. You've got an 87% chance of success. Well, son, that's a 13% chance of failure.
And now, the Safe Money Retirement Show with Tim Wood.
And we welcome you in to this week's edition of the Safe Money Retirement Show. Alongside Tim Wood, he's the founder, president, and certified financial fiduciary with Safe Money Retirement. My name is Kevin McAlpin. We hope you're having a terrific day. And as always, Tim and I appreciate you carving out just a small piece to spend with us here on the show. Coming up in just a few moments, Tim's going to tell you how he can help create guaranteed income in retirement to replace that paycheck you've been leaning on for all these years. Plus, we'll give you some signs it might be time to move on from your current financial advisor. We'll get to that, plus much, much more. But first things first, we do say hello to the star of the show, the man of the hour, my buddy, Mr. Tim Wood. And Tim, it is great to be with you. I hope you're staying cool these days. It got hot in a hurry, didn't it?
It did get hot in a hurry. And I love air conditioning. Whoever invented air conditioning, that person should get a medal because, it's been hot. Yeah. It came fast. Yeah, I think you and I talked about that a couple of weeks ago on the show, how, we used to be fantastic. Spring and fall are always my favorite times. Yep. And now it goes from freezing to 90. Right. And then in the fall, it goes from 90 to freeze. You know what I mean? It's like, we've lost that buffer of and that was always my favorite time of the year.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, fall is football season. We got a couple of months to go. We got to survive, and we'll just do it in the air conditioning together. We'll get through this all. Yep. And football is right around the corner. I know it's your favorite time of the year. And Tim, it is a friendly reminder, man. We are halfway through the calendar year, and something that you and I had talked about coming into 2026. Some changes, some tweaks we're going to make to the Safe Money Retirement Show, and you've got some really, really exciting things planned for our listeners as we move forward, don't you?
Yeah, I do. We discussed that. And I mean, as great as the show is with just you and I talking, I want to make sure that it becomes even more interactive. And one of the things that I mentioned, and I've already got quite a few really great guests lined up, we're going to start doing some interviews. Here coming in a couple of weeks is going to be the lady that is the director of Alzheimer's Tennessee. We're going to have a great conversation about what's things to watch for, what can you do, how can you help. It's going to be fantastic. I've already got kind of an outline of what we're going to discuss, and I know her personally because of my personal experience with my dad. She was actually our direct liaison, and she helped me through the actual situation, and she's awesome. Her name's Tracy. That's going to be amazing. I've already got several others lined up. And one other thing that I wanted to go ahead, and we're going to start today, is I get quite a few questions that are emailed into us. I listen to your show every week, but man, I'd really like to know this or that or this or that. I've literally got 2 pages here in front of me of questions. So we're going to start today. I'm going to just pick one, and we're going to just start going through these. Some weeks I'll still do the Safe Money Story of the Week, and some weeks we will go ahead and do 1 or 2 of these questions just to kind of mix things up and keep things fresh. And that, along with the interviews, it's just going to give a lot more content and try to help people really understand what they can do for their retirement and how all this kind of plays together.
And obviously, if you're tuned in, you have a question for Tim Wood, you can get on his phone lines today, or better yet, if you'd like to submit a question for him to answer on the air, you can send that via email to info@safemoneyretirement.com. And who knows, maybe Tim will answer your question on next week's show. We'll get to that coming up here in just a matter of moments. So, Tim, I know one thing that is certainly pertinent for a lot of folks listening these days is pensions and the fact that they continue to disappear as we go throughout time. And while they go away, the responsibility of creating a retirement paycheck, well, let's be honest, it's shifted from the employers to now us, the workers. We're now seeing another ripple effect as well, Tim. The average retirement age has moved up from 62 to 66. That's a 4-year jump. So folks are working longer, obviously, to make up for that missing guaranteed paycheck. So let's talk about how you can help. how our listeners don't necessarily have to keep working when it comes to planning for their retirement.
That's a great point. And you hear me talk about this all the time, Kevin. Getting that guaranteed paycheck is what's going to bring happiness in retirement. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Pensions were great. They were fantastic. And that used to be kind of the norm, right? And mm-hmm. now it's got less and less. And the most recent statistics is we're down in the single digits now of companies that are offering pensions to their workers. So what can you do? What are the options? The biggest option, and this is literally, y'all have heard me talk about this before. When I do a fact finder, which that's my very first meeting I do with everyone, we're not talking about rates. We're not talking about companies. We're just talking about where you are and what we need to do. Literally, the first thing that we're discussing in that appointment is your income. What's your income at now? What does it need to be at in retirement? What's your Social Security going to be? And we see if there's going to be a gap between what your expenses are or how much you want. I mean, some people want a lot more than their expenses, right? They want to be able to do the traveling and go see the grandkids and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. Okay, well, let's figure out how much do you need in retirement to give you the retirement that you want. Getting that paycheck is absolutely vital. That's the very first thing I work with everybody on. And these guaranteed lifetime income annuities you hear me talking about, another word for them, and I talk about this in my book, I also call them personally directed pensions because they're basically the same thing. Mm-hmm. And guess what else is a pension? Social Security. It's essentially a government pension and a government annuity. Kind of the same thing. They all work basically the same. So yeah, that's the very first thing I talk with people about is we've got to make sure we replace that paycheck. Now, you're going to get some of that paycheck replaced by Social Security, but Social Security is only set up to replace 40% of your income. Check it out. Go to the Social Security website. That's what they say. It's meant to replace 40% of your income. Well, I don't know many people that can live, especially today, with today's prices of everything, mm-hmm. I don't know anyone that can live on 40% of what they were making. Right. Nobody. So we've got to have something, and just pulling money out of an account and praying to God that the market doesn't go down and you've got enough to last the rest of your life. That's an awfully big risk. And that's the whole point to Safe Money Retirement. This company is, let's get rid of that risk. Let's totally take longevity risk off the table. Mm-hmm. We can do that with one of these guaranteed lifetime income plans. Because yes, you mentioned shifting the retirement timing. People are having to work longer because they don't have that guaranteed income. Well, guess what? We can fix that. And the sooner that we get going on it, the better. So if you are getting ready to retire and you want to talk to me now, can we do something? Absolutely. Would it have been better if we had spoken 10 years earlier? Because I've got products that have a guaranteed roll-up for 10 years. Yes, it would have been a lot better because you could put a lot less into a plan to get the income you need if it was rolling up guaranteed for 10 years to get to the point where it is at your retirement date. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that absolutely can make a huge difference. Another thing is not having those pensions really moves that risk from the employer to the worker. Right. So before, the risk was really, the employer took care of their employees even in retirement. And boy, that's not the case anymore. Once you retire, that's it. Yeah. There are some companies that still will allow you to get health insurance through COBRA until you get on Medicare, but that's dwindling less and less. And I'll be honest with you, I've got, just in the last week, I would say I've had 3 different clients that are ready to retire in their early 60s, and financially they can, but they're deciding to keep working until they get to 65 because buying health insurance for them and their spouse is going to be so expensive. Mm-hmm. We're talking like 4 figures a month expensive to get garbage coverage, really. So making sure you've got that covered. But yeah, knowing that you've got that income, that's going to be a really big thing you have to take care of. And really just the longevity risk. I started off talking about this, but making sure you've got enough income is what's going to allow you to take that longevity risk off the table. And then based on the type of plans that we do, because again, Safe Money Retirement LLC does not offer any plans that have any risk in the market at all. So guess what? We can take that risk off the table as well. Those are the two top risks in retirement. So we're taking longevity risk off the table. You can't outlive your money in these plans. They keep paying as long as you're breathing, no matter how long you live. You could literally set a world record and it's still paying. And then we're taking market risk off the table because there's no chance of market losses. Even if the market goes off a cliff, you can't lose any in any of the plans that we do. So we're getting those two big risks off the table and allowing people to plan for a retirement that they want.
If that sounds like you, if you are curious about maybe working a few more years and what you're going to do when you do tell the boss, that's it. You walk out the door and you go into retirement. You'd like to learn more about annuities, personal pensions, and of course, participating in these streams of income without the risk of market loss. It all starts with one phone call to Tim Wood and the team at Safe Money Retirement. If you want to get on his calendar, folks, there's no cost, there's no obligation, and we do have teammates standing by to get you lined up on Tim's calendar today. 800-913-SAFE. That's 800-913-7233 or online anytime. The website is safemoneyretirement.com. Again, that's safemoneyretirement.com. So, Tim, obviously we mentioned it just a few moments ago. Opportunities for our listeners to get a little more involved in the show. And again, if you have questions about some of the topics we cover on the program, send your emails to info@safemoneyretirement.com. And Tim, I think we're kicking things off right here today with our very first listener submitted question. Is that right?
Absolutely. And I've already as I showed you before we started recording this, I've got a page and a half of questions already.
Yeah.
So we're already set for questions, but please go ahead and send them. And I'm just going to kind of take them in order. I picked one that's going to be kind of a little bit of a longer discussion. So we're probably only going to have time to get to one today, but this is a really good question. And I'm going to paraphrase because it's kind of a long question. Had a client that emailed in and said, I've got a friend of mine that is very knowledgeable about the markets and money and all that kind of stuff. And we were talking about the different asset classes, which I'm talking about pre-tax, after-tax, Roth, those kind of things. And he said, it depends on what asset class it is as to how much money you actually have and what does that mean. That was the question. What I want to do is explain why all assets are not created equal. And based on what classification, that's going to determine how much, because the same amount is not the same amount based on what kind of qualification it is. So let me explain what I mean and what, for the listener, what he was asking and what he was telling you. Let me explain what I mean by that. So all money out there, all money in the United States is one of three classifications. It's either a qualified pre-tax, which means it's in something like a 401k, a 403b, 457, TSP, something like that you socked money away, but you didn't pay taxes on. So we all know we're going to have to pay taxes on that at some point. So let's just call that's qualified pre-tax. So that's number one. Number two is non-qualified. So what's non-qualified? Non-qualified means that's money you've already paid taxes on. Now, for a lot of people, that kind of sounds backwards. The way I describe it is qualified means it's qualified to be taxed. Non-qualified means it's not qualified to be taxed because you've already paid tax, but you've only paid tax on the cost basis. And I'm going to explain what that is here in just a second. And then the last option, it also is qualified, but it's Roth. It's a Roth account. And what the heck does that mean? So let's go through all three of those really quick and explain what the amount would actually be based on the qualification of money. Let's just say that all three of these accounts started at $100,000 and they're now at $200,000, just to make this really easy, to make the numbers really easy, okay? And we're going to start with qualified. So that was the first one I said, a qualified pre-tax account. If it started at 100 and it is now 200 in qualified pre-tax accounts, it does not matter what it's grown to. It makes absolutely no difference. Every single penny of it is going to be taxable when you withdraw it. Or when you get to that RMD age, which is either, if you haven't already started RMDs, it's either going to be 73 or 75 based on when you were born, then you're going to have to start taking money out and paying taxes. You don't have a choice. The government forces you because they want their taxes. News alert. The government wants their taxes. No one knew that, right?
Where's the breaking alert, the breaking news sounder when you need it?
We need to have that. Yeah, I need to put that here in my little soundboard.
Right.
So in qualified plans, which again, that's any type of pre-tax plan, doesn't matter. They all work the same. IRAs, 401s, TSPs, all the same. You're going to owe taxes on all of that money when you take that money out. So if you've got $200,000 in that account, and let's just say you're at the 22% tax rate, that's simple math. That's $44,000 you're going to owe in taxes. You don't have $200,000 in that account. You've got $156 in that account. So that's kind of what we're talking about. Is the same amount is not the same amount. So $200,000 in a qualified account, again, it depends on what your tax rate is. And here's one thing to think about. It depends on what your tax rate is when you withdraw it. We know right now we are at historically low tax rates. We don't know what the tax rates are going to be 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now. Sooner or later, we're going to get someone in the White House that's going to jack up the tax rates to try to balance the budget. I don't know any other way to do it. They're either going to have to cut out almost everything the government does, and we know someone that's going to get in that's going to raise the tax rates. That's not going to be what they're going to do. They're going to raise the tax rates. So 22% may not even be viable by the time you're in retirement. But I'm just using that number because that's a good number now. So that would be with a qualified account, $200,000. You actually only have $156,000 is yours. So it's kind of almost like you've got a partner with the IRS. Doesn't that make you feel warm and fuzzy?
Oh, yeah.
Isn't that great? Yeah, isn't that fantastic?
Yeah.
So that's qualified, all taxable 100%. So now let's go to the second, which is non-qualified. Now, in a non-qualified account, that is an account that you started with after-tax money. Now, the whatever you started that account with, that is called your cost basis. That's a fancy term that y'all have heard probably for most of your life. Cost basis is what you started an account with. And in a non-qualified account, that cost basis, you're never going to have to pay taxes on again because you've already paid taxes on it. So let's go back to our example. Started it with $100,000, it's now at $200,000. Well, if you started it with $100,000 in non-qualified, which means you've already paid taxes on it, you don't ever have to pay taxes on that $100,000 again. But now it's grown to $200,000. Guess what? You are going to have to pay taxes on that growth. So in that case, the $100,000 that it would have grown, you would owe $22,000 in taxes on that. So in that account, your $200,000 would actually be $178,000. So better than the qualified, obviously, because you already paid taxes on the first $100,000. You're not having to pay taxes on all of it, but you're still going to have to pay taxes on any of the growth that you've gotten from whatever the cost basis or the original that you started with was. Okay? Mm-hmm. Now, the last one, Roth. This is absolutely the gold mine. This is what everybody wants. Why are Roth accounts so fantastic? Because you've already paid taxes on it. And you don't ever have to pay taxes on any of the growth as long as the account's been open for 5 years. Okay? Mm-hmm. So in a Roth account, if you started a Roth account with $100,000, as long as it's been at least 5 years, it can grow to $200,000. It can grow to $2 million. It doesn't make any difference. That's all tax free. All of it, as long as the account's been open for 5 years. So Roths are absolutely a gold mine, and those that are really, really wise are doing everything they can to get Roth accounts. Now, the very last thing I want to mention in this, because I know we're running short on time, is, well, what can I do to get those qualified accounts and get some of that money paid, the taxes paid now, so it goes to a Roth account? Well, there are plans out there that allow for partial Roth conversions. One of the big things I do with clients every single time when we meet is I say, listen, you've got $750,000 in this IRA. That's fantastic, but you're going to owe taxes on all of it. And we don't know what the tax rate's going to be when you wind up pulling it out. So let's look at a plan where every single year you can determine, and I help people figure out how much, you can determine how much you want to pay taxes on and go ahead and do that conversion for whatever that percentage is. It could be none this year. It could be 10%. It could be 20%. However much, Go ahead and do as much taxes as you can now, especially now while we're at the low tax rates, because that's going to allow you to have less that you're going to be taxable when you need it.
Obviously, we know a lot of folks out there try to DIY their way through retirement. Taxes can certainly take a big-time bite out of your nest egg if they're not planned for properly. That's why you want to sit down with someone who does this day in and day out. He is Tim Wood. He is a certified financial fiduciary. Oh, by the way, he's also the founder and president of Safe Money Retirement. And if you'd like to get on his calendar today, folks, with no cost, no obligation whatsoever, 800-913-SAFE. That's 800-913-7233 or online anytime. The website is safemoneyretirement.com. That's safemoneyretirement.com. So, Tim, I know we trust financial advisors with some of the biggest decisions we're going to make in our lifetime. But according to an article I saw recently on MarketWatch.com, a lot of folks out there don't realize there's a problem until it's already cost them. The warning signs can be subtle at first, but by the time they become obvious, the damage can already be done. So let's talk about someone listening today. Maybe it's been a while since they've sat down with someone like yourself or reviewed a retirement plan. What would be some warning signs that maybe the relationship you have with an advisor might not necessarily be in your best interest when all's said and done?
Well, there's quite a few, and there's a few I would go over, but the thing that jumps to my head, absolutely number one is your guy a certified financial fiduciary? Period. Mm-hmm. Because if not, a certified financial fiduciary is legally obligated to do everything in your best interests. If your guy or woman is not, then there's a huge red flag right there, right off the bat.
Right.
The second thing I would say before I get into my list I've got here is someone that has helped you in the growth phase of your retirement, the acquisition phase, that's helped you gather this wad of money that you've got now for retirement. That's not necessarily the same person you're going to want to work with in retirement. Mm-hmm. Gathering all the money and acquiring all the money and growing, and this, there's a ton of people out there. But in retirement, because honestly, let's be honest, most advisors can make you money. If they didn't, they wouldn't be in business, right? I mean, that's pretty much all of them can make you money. But in retirement, what matters is how much you keep. Mm-hmm. And that's a totally different mindset. It's totally different plans. It's totally different products. It's a totally different way of thinking. So making sure that whoever you're working with understands those things. And if you had a plan that was put together, even if it was put together 5 or 10 years ago, doesn't mean it's valid now.
Right.
And my goodness, if it was put together 15, 20, 30 years ago, boy, you better be checking because things have totally changed. Plans have totally changed. Pulling out 4%, no, that is not a fix anymore. If anyone out there is listening, still pulling out 4% out of their accounts, go to my website, go to the media section and read the article from Dr. Wade Fowle on the 4% rule. And how that is not a rule anymore. Mm-hmm. If you're just going to pull money out of an account, you really need to be closer to 2.5%. Now, why would you want to just pull 2.5% out and hope you had enough when there are guaranteed lifetime income products like you heard Kevin and I just talking about a few minutes ago, where I can get you 3 times that? Guaranteed. Makes no sense. Mm-hmm. So you need to make sure you're with the right type of advisor for what you're looking to do, and that's retirement. But here's some red flags that I wrote down. Number one, if they're not advising you, if they're just selling.
Yeah.
Okay, you don't want a salesperson, especially in retirement. Again, maybe throughout the whole growth phase, that's fine because they're buying this and selling that and all that. That's fantastic. But y'all hear me talk about the market math all the time. If you lose 30%, you've got to have between 42 and 43% gain just to get back to where you were. Mm-hmm. If you're in your 30s, that's fine. If you're in your 70s, that's not fine because you might not have time to even ever get back. And if you're also taking money out at the same time, that's when you get in that retirement death spiral that happened to my dad. Those of you that have read my book, my dad lost 75% of his retirement in his first 4 years. It's in the book. Get your copy. You can read about it yourself and understand why. And that's what's called sequence of returns risk. That's another risk we can take off the table for you. But make sure that your guy's actually advising you in retirement, not just being a salesperson. Also, they have a lot of fees. You don't really understand what you're paying for, and you're paying for fees that you don't need to be paying for. That's another thing that I work with clients on every single day. People come in here with their statements. I just had a lady, literally, I could show you the text, just the other day sent me a text and said, I looked where you told me to look on my thing, and it looks like I am paying almost $2,000 a quarter in fees on this plan. Is that correct? It was correct. Yes, it's exactly what you're doing. So making sure that you understand what you're paying for and why you're paying for it. Now, do some of my plans have fees? Yes. But if you're paying for a fee in anything that I do, you know exactly why you're paying for that fee, and you're choosing to because of the benefit that you're getting. For example, a guaranteed lifetime income product. Those do have small fees that average around 1%, but you're getting a guaranteed lifetime income you can't outlive. That's why you're paying for it. It's worth it. So if you ever do that with me, you know that you're why you're doing it and you know what the purpose is. Another thing is when people get into retirement, I hear this all the time. They never hear from their guy. And when I say guy, I'm not trying to be sexist. I'm just saying guy, their guy. They just never hear from them anymore. The communication almost totally disappears because they're not contributing anymore. So their quote unquote guy is not making really any more money on them because there's no more contributions, and they just kind of totally disappear. And that's when you need communication the most. You need to be talking to someone that knows what they're talking about. Another thing is their plans that were put in there can really feel passive instead of proactive, especially if you started that plan years and years ago. Yes, it's passive. Most of the time, your guy is just letting it go. That's what we planned. We're just letting it go. Well, things change. The market has changed. The rates have changed. Everything has changed. Plans have changed. So making sure that you're in the right thing. And then the last thing I would say is a lot of people are left feeling uncertain after they meet with their current guy about retirement instead of confident. So you need to meet with someone that when you walk out of their office, you're going to know, here's what we're doing, here's how it's going to work. I've got the paperwork that proves it. I've got the contract that proves it. I've got the video with Tim that he went over it that shows exactly how it's going to work. You're walking out with confidence, knowing you're going to have the retirement you want.
Well, if you're tuned in today, you're hearing some of these things, and maybe you feel like you've got some red flags on the person you've been working with when it comes to your retirement. We're looking for a second opinion. Well, look no further than Tim Wood. He is the founder, president, and certified financial fiduciary. He's with Safe Money Retirement. And folks, if you want to get on his calendar with no cost and no obligation whatsoever, we do have teammates standing by to make that happen for you right now. And here's what we'll do, folks. For our first 5 callers from today's show, you schedule that time to have these conversations with Tim and his team. Again, there's no cost. There's no obligation. He's also going to throw in a complimentary copy of that book he mentioned just moments ago. It's called Safe Money Retirement, Your Game Plan for Success. And if you'd like to pick up that copy of the book, sit down with Tim and start putting that plan in place for your retirement. It all starts with one phone call, 800-913-SAFE. Again, it's 800-913-7233. Online anytime at safemoneyretirement.com. Again, it's safemoneyretirement.com. And don't forget, send those questions in as well. If you'd like to hear your question answered on the air, you can send it to info@Safe Money Retirement. Tim just might very well read it on next week's show. Well, Tim, it's been another enjoyable 30 minutes with you, my friend. We are very quickly running out of time, but before we do, floor is all yours for the final word.
Thanks, Kevin. I appreciate it. Another great show today. We discussed some really important stuff. First, we talked about getting a guaranteed lifetime income. People, that is the most important thing you can do in retirement, is know that you've got enough guaranteed lifetime income that's guaranteed lifetime income for you and your spouse. Because God forbid the Lord takes you home 3 years from now, your spouse could set a world record and live to 130. Don't you want to know he or she is taken care of? We can do that. It's important. Make sure that you've got that covered. The last thing that we discussed was, how do you know if you might need to look for a different advisor? And all of those red flags that we discussed, if they're selling, if you don't understand what you're paying for, if the communication isn't there, a lot of things, especially if they're not a certified financial fiduciary, especially if they're not a retirement income certified professional and understand how to do all of that. There's a lot of things that goes into retirement. Make sure you've got the right guy. But I actually really quick want to go back to the question that we answered. It's a very important question. I've said this before on the show. If someone looked at my business card, the very first thing that's on my business card is retirement tax planning, because all of this other stuff is vital. But unless you know how you're going to pay the taxes, how the RMDs are going to work, how much are you going to owe, and we don't even know what the tax rates are going to be, so we need to prepare for that. That's how you can have your own safe money retirement.
The preceding information does not represent tax, legal, or investment advice. Obviously, by contacting us now, you are only taking the first step towards protecting your retirement. No information presented today should be acted upon without meeting with a qualified, licensed insurance professional. It is important that you read all insurance contract disclosures carefully before making a purchase decision. Interest and other guarantees in annuity contracts are subject to the claims-paying ability of the insurance carrier that issued the contract. The tax consequences of annuity income should be considered with the help of a licensed tax professional. Rates and returns mentioned on this program may vary based on state availability and are subject to change without notice.
Hey, it's Glenn Beck. Do you still have all of your retirement money at risk in the market? Most know that I don't do that. It's way too dangerous, in my opinion, at least. The fact the market could fall off a cliff tomorrow, yet many don't have an expert you can trust. Let me tell you about Tim Wood. Now, he's the owner of Safe Money Retirement. That's a certified financial fiduciary and a best-selling author. I met Tim personally, and I can tell you that he and his team can help you plan your own guaranteed lifetime income streams to cover you and your spouse and grow your money while protecting it from a market crash. Go to safemoneyretirement.com/Beck or call 800-913-SAFE to schedule a no-obligation free 15-minute discovery call with Tim. You know I just don't trust anyone, and so do your own homework with Tim at safemoneyretirement.com/Beck and book your free discovery call with Tim online or call 800-913-SAFE and get started today.